Good morning.
Morning.
Hi, Sandy.
Ken, I think John Rosen is still trying to get in.
I keep inviting him and he keeps declining.
I'm pushing the wrong button.
Yeah, no, he just texted, he just sent a chat message. Okay. It is now 9 o'clock, and I welcome everyone to the February 10th meeting of the Captiva Community Panel. We have sent out an agenda. The backed by popular demand is Island Water today, and so they'll be second on the agenda after we hear from the Sheriff's Department. And then we have our normal agenda items that we will go through. First, we'll have our introductions and roll call. I'm David Mintz. I'm here. Jay Brown.
I'm here, David.
Okay, Linda Laird.
Here.
Marguerite Di-Mabille.
Here.
Mike Bennett.
Here.
Ken Suarez.
Here.
Sandy Stillwell-Youngquist.
Here.
John Wade.
Here.
Thank you, people. There are a couple of people that are not here. They've advised me that they couldn't make today's meeting, but we have a quorum, and I know John Rosen is still trying to get in. I'm not quite sure. Maybe he's in a car, but Ken will keep trying to get him in, but he is attempting to be here. First thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from January 13th, 2026. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Minutes pass. Next thing on the agenda, first thing is our report from the Sheriff's Department. I think today we have Deputy Christine Zumbrum with us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You can hear me okay?
Yes, we
Just
can.
fine.
Okay, perfect. Glad to be back. Okay, so we're going to start with spring break. We all know that can be a trying time here on the island. Just for reference, Lee County Schools, their break starts March 13th, goes that entire week. College breaks typically stagger. So some research that I did, they start around February 21st. They continue pretty much through till April. However, the majority end the end of March. So with that being said, we're always going to be here ready to address some of the issues that come along with spring break. Sometimes when we focus on some of the minor ones, such as the noise complaints and the open containers, that eliminates a lot of the other more major problems that could occur. So we're ready to address those issues. Obviously, with more people, the likelihood of becoming a victim out here increases. So protect yourselves. It's really easy. It's just a matter of securing your property, locking the golf carts, just locking your doors in general. When people start drinking, they do dumb things that they think are funny. Just so secure those things, the bicycles, the kayaks, the fishing gear. Again, with that increase of people, which we're even seeing it now that we have a little bit of the weather starting to improve again, the pedestrian and bike traffic has increased as well. So be mindful when you're traveling on the island. We don't have sidewalks here, just a small right of way. And a lot of that area has, it's not a lot of it. There are portions that still have some sand on it due to the winds that we had a couple weeks ago. So something to remember that bicycles, at night, so sunset and sunrise, they're required to have a lamp on the front. So a white light on the front, red lamp and reflector on the rear. Most rental bikes don't have it. And a lot of the properties that rent as well don't have the bikes equipped with that. So maybe letting those people know it's really dark out here at night. They're hard to see. And, I think we can all agree that most crashes that occur with a bike or pedestrian versus a vehicle don't fare well for those people. So being able to see them is really important. So we are stopping them and educating as well. With that being said, our traffic enforcement. So we continue to enforce traffic. Obviously just violations we see like passing and no passing zones, stop signs. We continue to use our radars and laser equipment to address speeding violations. I did look, we've had, without having a number, there have been a lot of stops between the three of us out here. And that's not even including just verbal warnings and just education that has been given. So we'll continue to do that. So if you see us sitting out there, that's what we're doing. And we just want to make sure everyone's aware that we're trying to do the best we can to make sure everyone's safe.
Thank you, Deputy. Are there any questions for Deputy Zumbrum? Deputy, I have one question. What is the rule with respect to drinking on the beach? Now that you mentioned spring break, in Lee County.
So you're not allowed to have open containers of alcohol on the beach. So, and there's no open containers in Lee County. So whether they're walking, we address it. If they're in a golf cart, we address it. Low speed, so we address it. No open containers in Lee County.
On the beach. So in other words, you can't bring a container of a 6-pack of beer and drink it on the beach is what you're saying.
That is correct. That is correct.
Any other questions for the deputy?
Deputy, did you say that's no open containers anywhere in addition to the beach, or is that just on the beach?
That's correct. So yeah, you can't go walking down the street with a
So you
open.
can't walk down the street of Captiva in the village with a drink in your hand.
No, you cannot.
Oh,
So no
okay.
open containers.
Not just Captiva, it's anywhere in Lee County, I gather.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
I think, and I believe Sanibel, they are allowed to have open containers on their beach. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I can look into that. But I think that they are allowed on the beach, but they are not here. The signs, I know at Turner do reflect that. I'm not sure if there's any, I can check the other access points because that's important to have that as well, which is something I also meant to bring up. There's also been an increase of vehicles driving up the dunes to look at the beach now. And that's something that is also being looked at through, I believe, the CEPD. And Brighton is shaking his head, so I can see he's aware he might address something. And also the county park and recs to see about getting some signage up so that no damage has been done or anything, but I think it's important that people understand that they're not allowed to be there, and they can't use the excuse, well, there was no sign to tell me that I couldn't do it. I understand that these things they should just know, but the signs help, obviously.
Thank you, Deputy. Anything else for Christine? Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. The next on the agenda is Island Water. I just want to ask Jeff Powell if there's a reason why we should place him first, if he has something that he has to deal with, or can I move to Island Water at this point?
Good morning. You can go to Island Water if you'd like.
Thank you, Jeff. Island Water, we have with us Diana Wilson and Mark Kamel. Diana is the president or what?
General manager. General manager.
Mark Kamel is the president, I believe, of the board. And as I said before, they're returning by popular demand. Diana,
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully I get this done correctly the first time. All right. Oh, is everyone able to see?
Yes.
Title slide. Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to meet with everyone again. It's good to know that it's by popular demand as well. I think many of you were in attendance at the November meeting where Island Water presented proposed rate and fee adjustments in a fairly detailed presentation. Shortly after that meeting, the utility received some very positive news that we had been awarded $35 million in forgivable loans and zero interest loans through the Florida DEP. That it was to support a number of resiliency projects that we had planned. So with that news, very favorable news, the Island Water Board of Directors paused the rate adjustment that was presented in November and actually withdrew the petitions to both Lee County and the city of Sanibel. And that allowed our professional rate consultant, Riftalis Financial, to go back to the rate model and evaluate the impact that that sizable external award had on the rate and fee adjustments. So I'm here today because that work has been completed, and I can share with you the results of that reassessment of the rate and fee adjustments. So with that, to briefly summarize, again, November's presentation was fairly detailed. I know that there's a heavy agenda today, so we're just going to briefly go over some of the high points of why the rate adjustments are required. Island Water hasn't adjusted rates since 2009, so we have a 16-year track record of maintaining our operations with that same rate structure. And obviously, everything in that 16-year span of time has increased in costs. Our labor costs, our insurance, fleet vehicles, equipment, chemicals, you name it. We have absorbed those increases over that 16-year period. The Riftalis study has and model has shown that as we enter 2026, our projected revenues will be basically not enough to cover our operation and maintenance expenses for the year. So for that reason alone, we need to be looking at additional revenues to support just the basic operations of the utility. On top of that, we have a 10-year, $122 million capital improvement plan. I do want to stress that this capital improvement plan was constructed by internal key staff from Island Water, the staff members that operate and maintain these systems, that know these systems, that after hurricanes Ian, Milton, and Helene were the ones who restored these systems, so we know where the weaknesses are and what we need to do to make those more resilient in the future. So that 10-year CAP plan addresses storm resiliency and reliability projects. It addresses renewal and replacement. Island Water is now a 60-year-old utility. Our RO treatment plant was constructed in 1980. So we're starting to see just the normal aging out of many of our facilities requiring renewal and replacement. And we have a need for capacity expansion. Although the islands are fairly built out, there is some additional opportunity for redevelopment, we know. But really, the bulk of the capacity expansion is to meet the needs of increasing irrigation demands. And in fact, the irrigation demands have gotten to the point where there are seasons during the year where Island Water's capacity is met. We are at our capacity to meet those irrigation demands. So again, capacity expansion is a need. We also need to establish an emergency reserve fund. This again is for post-storm conditions after Ian. There was a period of 3 months where Island Water paused billing. And although we paused billing and the revenue, ceased for that period of time, the expenses did not. We still had labor, we still had to pay our employees payroll, benefits, supplies, etc. So that emergency fund will allow us to maintain operations in post-storm conditions. So that's, in a nutshell, some of what we discussed in November. But what has changed is, again, all very positive. We received, again, nearly $35 million in external funding through forgivable loans and zero interest loans. That money is added to $10 million that in grants that were previously awarded to Island Water. We've been aggressive and successful in getting external funding, so that is good news. And as Reftalis Financial, our rate consultant, took those numbers into account, they were able to adjust the recommended rates. In November, we talked about 3 years in a row of 21% increases, 2026, 2027, 2028. That can now be reduced to 18% for each of those 3 years for all billed services. So we're pleased with that meaningful reduction in the recommended rate adjustment. Membership fees, which is for new memberships and membership upgrades, were also able to come down slightly because of those external awards. The methodology to calculate that did not change from the November meeting. So what does that look like? The numbers are what people would care about. So the proposed rate adjustments with the 18% for all 3 of those years, we like to look at 5,000 gallon per month bills because that represents a typical household user, domestic consumption for sanitation purposes, toilet flushing, cooking, washing. So the current bill is $29.50, has been that way since 2009. In 2026, with the proposed increase, that member would see their monthly bill go up by $5.29. In 2027, $6.26, and $7.41 in 2028. So again, an 18% increase we understand is the increase in percentage seems sizable. The increase in dollars is quite modest. And the same applies down the line, monthly bills at 10 and 15,000 gallons. These include our members who have more discretionary water use for irrigation, and they would then see their bills rise accordingly. You can see a 15,000 gallon per month user who has some discretionary water use for outside purposes, maybe a pool fill, some level of irrigation, would see in 2026 their bill go up by just under $13 per month. I think one of the things that we have found interesting to look at is, even after these increases, where do we sit regionally? And here we go. This chart shows that even after the 2026 proposed increases, Island Water sits very favorably compared to our regional counterparts, utilities in Southwest Florida. So again, for a 5,000 gallon per month household domestic user, their current bill is $29.50. The first green bar to the left. The second green bar will represent the 2026 increased rates at $34.79. And you can see we are well below the $48.99 regional average. 2 things to point out here. This slide was developed in 2025, so it does not take into account the fact that most of these other utilities will be again increasing their rates in 2026, which would make Island Water even more favorable. The other thing that I would point out is that the current average of $48.99 at the end of this 3-year rate adjustment, so at the end of 2028, Island Water's bill is still under this regional average amount. We'd be at $48.46. So again, just highlighting that, yes, we are increasing rates to meet the needs of the system, but we are very efficient and we are very positive. We compare very favorably regionally. And the same story applies even if we look at a more of a discretionary user of water at the 15,000 gallon level per month. The current bill would be $72.25, has been since 2009, increasing to $85.24 in 2026, far below the regional average. And at the end of 2028, we would expect that member to have a bill at $118.71. So even in 3 years, still far below. Another way to compare this is to look at if we had adjusted throughout the years by the CPI. And if we had just made that adjustment throughout the years, we would expect a bill in 2028 to be $109.40. So really these adjustments are trying to capture that impact of inflation through the years. So just to kind of put this in a nice, easy, compact message. This is Island Water's first rate increase in 15 years. The impacts in dollars and cents are modest on the typical household user. Even after the increases, we are still very favorable compared to our regional counterparts. And all this on top of the fact that we have major improvements to our system to increase our post-storm reliability, to renew our infrastructure, and to meet the growing demands of our membership for irrigation purposes primarily, and puts us in a much better position, again, post-storm recovery, where we still have financial obligations to our employees, to our suppliers. That emergency reserve fund will allow us to maintain constant operations. So we're in a good position. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And I would also direct anybody who has a further interest to go to Island Water's website, which is islandwater.com, where we have all of the supporting materials available for review.
Thank you, Diana. Before we take questions, I'm just going to ask Mark Comel, the president of Island Water, if he'd like to add anything before we take questions.
No, I think Diana has done a good job of summarizing it and go on to questions.
Are there any questions for Diana from the panel?
I have one, Jay Brown. Diana, how was it that we were able to go 16 years without a rate increase?
There's several parts to that. The first is that we're efficient. We're continuously looking for ways to become more efficient, and through the years we have found cost-cutting measures. But the bulk of the reason is that in 2009, when the rates were adjusted, when they were calculated at that time, there were a few factors going on in the background. One was a severe economic downturn. The other was a major push for conservation. And so when Island Water at that time projected their revenue requirements, they were projecting that based on diminishing sales. And so that's the rate structure that we have today was based on diminishing sales and needing to have enough revenue because we're a fixed cost operation. That did not happen, even with the economic downturn, even with the push for conservation. Throughout the years, water sales went up. And so we benefited from a rate structure that expected lower sales and in fact increased in sales. So that did push off the need for rate increases for some time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Have you ever considered a nonlinear rate structure? What did I mean? I meant that that the household use is charged at one rate, and then as you get very high usages, it's charged at a different rate.
We actually have, it's an excellent question. We actually have an increasing block rate currently in effect, and it has been, we've had that structure since 1992. So what happens is in 5,000 gallon increments, after you reach the next 5,000, the rate for that 5,000 gallons increases. So the cost per thousand for that domestic 5,000 gallon user is lower than the higher level user. Part of it is part of it's conservation minded, and part of it is the fact that as we have to increase capacity to serve the higher needs, that is more expensive water. So, but that increasing block rate takes that into account.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Diana? Okay, Diana and Mark, thank you very much. I mean, you are obviously working very hard to explain why you need a rate increase. I think, I'll speak for myself, but I don't think the rate increase is the major concern for people on Captiva. I think the major concern for the people on Captiva is your ability to recover after a hurricane. We've learned through a couple of hurricanes that not having available water immediately after a hurricane is very detrimental to our homes and the future of Captiva. So to the extent that a rate increase assists in having immediate or quick recovery from a devastating hurricane, I think that's what people would appreciate more than anything else. Those of us who have gone through a hurricane and understand the need for water immediately and as quickly as possible after the disaster hits.
Very good. No, appreciate that. And our work has in the background been to ensure that the delivery that we had post Ian, post Helene, and post Milton, which we believe was a high level of service, only continues to grow.
David, this is Mark. I might just toot Diana's horn here a little bit. I think we were out of water for 10 days after Ian. And at that point, we had the lines repressurized. They never lost pressure after Helene or Milton.
Right. No, and it was really appreciated by this community. I can tell you, I heard it repeatedly. You can't clean anything. You can't deal with anything that a hurricane produces that most of us face without having water.
Yeah, and a lot of the capital program is targeted at hardening the system further just to address those issues. So,
John Rosen, did you have a question? No, you were just waving. Okay. 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 Any other questions for Diana or Mark? Thank you very much for your presentation.
thank you.
I'll let you know if they ask you to return again. The community. Okay. Chief Jeff Powell, Captiva Fire District.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. How are you today? Just a couple things. Thank you to everybody who was able to come out this weekend and attend our open house. It was good to see everybody this weekend. So thank you for that. It was a good turnout. Reminder that the referendum voting is today. If you haven't participated yet, the polls opened at 7 a.m. this morning and will close at 7 p.m. tonight. Again, that is at the CCA. That is not here at the fire station. We had a handful of people who've called the last couple of days thinking that they were voting at the fire station. So if you haven't voted, just a reminder, it's at the CCA today, 7 to 7. And then also this weekend, we received some requests for us to do a CPR class for the community, which we do CPR classes all the time. They are free for residents. We charge businesses commercially for that type of service, but for residents, the classes are free. So if you or anyone you know wants to take a CPR class, reach out to me, call the station, submit a request through our website, and we can look at scheduling some dates. We try and get a group anywhere from 6 to 12 kind of to put those classes on. 12 is kind of the max at a time. Otherwise, it just gets to be too many people to do that. So we can schedule as many classes as needed though. So if you are one of those that's interested, please feel free to reach out. And I know the CCA was going to be having a conversation about it because some of their members want to do it. So we'll be looking to schedule a class hopefully soon in the next couple months. So Other than that, you've got a busy meeting, so I'll leave it to questions if there's any for me right now.
Are there any questions for Jeff? Jeff cannot, the fire department cannot advocate one way or the other or how to vote.
Correct.
Captiva Community Panel can.
Mhm.
Encourage
I can encourage you to vote and give you instructions on how to. Aside from that, we can't use our resources to persuade either way. So
I encourage everybody to vote and to vote yes for the bond referendum, particularly so that we have the ability. One of the reasons is so that we have ability for a helicopter landing pad some point in the future. If in fact we lose the one on the Rauschenberg property, we as a community, just so everybody knows, we had two serious medical emergencies over the last couple of weeks, or even less than a couple of weeks, and the helicopter was used twice. And I think that's important for all of us who live on Captiva to have the ability to have that resource should we need it to be flown to Gulf Coast Hospital or any other hospital, Naples, for example, or anywhere else. And so I just want to make that clear. The other thing is, I just want to say, one of the accidents took place on the street that I live a couple days ago, and the fire department, EMS, and the sheriff's department were there in a split second, and they worked with the injured person for over an hour before they felt comfortable that he was stable enough to put him in the ambulance and then to get him to the helicopter. And I just want to thank Jeff for the community, that they are a great resource and they give you a great deal of comfort give us a great deal of comfort knowing that they're there and they have the skills that they clearly portrayed the other day. So Jeff, on behalf of the community, I want to thank you for that.
thank you, David. Yeah, that was one of many tragic calls, if you will, we've had the last couple weeks. We've had some bad trauma calls, some medicals. I'm sure you've seen at least once or twice a helicopter go over. Almost used it another time this weekend, but was able to ground transport another call faster. The helicopter was in use on another call. Otherwise, that would have been used the other day as well. And then we actually flew two patients out of Upper Cap as well that we responded with our rescue boat to accidents. One on Cayo Costa. A guy was crushed by a bobcat doing demolition up there that we had to respond to, and then another medical up there. So yeah, it's been a busy couple weeks for sure. So I appreciate that, David, and we're like you said, we're here for you, and we'll do everything we can to support you guys. So thank you.
Any other questions for Jeff? Thank you, Jeff. Brighton Hurd, General Manager of CEPD.
Morning. As David mentioned earlier, we didn't hold our February meeting yesterday as we had previously scheduled because we wouldn't have had a quorum. So we have rescheduled it to this coming Monday, the 16th, and it will be held in our office and on Microsoft Teams. We are continuing to improve the dune system. You may see ropes and bollards most immediately being installed. I received a call from Deputy Chris Lusk over the weekend about the motorcycle that rode up through the Allison Hagerup parking lot and onto the top of the dune. It was unfortunate to hear, but we do look forward to installing those ropes and bollards pretty immediately to prevent those type of activities, as well as some signage that will help notify folks that is not allowed at all. I've received some comments from residents who would like to see potentially some additional Moby mats to improve access over the larger dunes at Leica and Whitman Lane. I'm going to talk to the commissioners about that. We're planning to install them at Andy Rossi and at the Allison Hagerup Park. They are very expensive, but they absolutely do improve access for everyone, especially the elderly and those pushing strollers and other wheeled devices. They do have to be permitted, so I'll have to be working with the FDEP to make sure that we're in compliance before installing those Moby mats. We also plan to install some additional vegetation, which you may have heard us speaking about. Most immediately, it will be installed around the public access points, and I've also applied with the state for some additional funding that we may be able to use for more woody species to help biodiversify the dunes and also provide a more substantial backdrop to them to help prevent them from migrating. Our Australian pine removal program is still underway. I would encourage anyone who has Australian pines on their property that they would like to have removed completely free of charge to contact us. We've removed several hundred up to this point and have more than half of the funding still remaining. So I would like to continue to make this landscape scale improvement to the island, but it does require volunteers to give us a call and let us take care of those pine trees for you. We also, as part of that grant, have funding. I have two full-time iguana removal experts. So if you have excessive numbers of iguanas around your property, feel free to contact us and I can direct those guys to come take care of them for you. I think those are all of the updates that I've got this month, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Brighton from the panel?
Yes, I have a couple, David. Um, First, if you're a property owner and you live on the beach, what guidance do you have for people as how they should cross the dunes that are on their property?
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up. I actually met with Mr. Tom Brewster yesterday about an issue related to that. So, Earth Balance did the plantings of the sea oats across the dunes, but didn't coordinate with CEPD prior to beginning the planting as per where they should leave the individual dune crossovers for homeowners. So, some were left in the correct locations, some were not, some were not left at all. And so I would encourage you, if you see a path or a crossover near your house that you're not comfortable with, if you think it crosses your neighbor's property line, or if you are missing one altogether that was there historically, please just contact us and we'll work with you to make sure that those access points are all restored. We want to make sure that everyone who historically had an access path continues to have that, because after all of the plantings are done, we're going to be doing a full survey of the dunes to mark the locations of all of the crossovers. And Lee County has requested that we provide them a GIS file of these locations so that they can use them for enforcement purposes in the future.
So, in other words, property owners should look for a natural pathway through the vegetation on his property. Is that?
Well, so they left about 4 to 5 foot wide angled paths. They're kind of at a dog leg. They, like I said, didn't leave all of the paths that they should have, so we can remove some of the plugs of grass if they didn't leave a path where they should have.
All right, so if you don't have if you live on the beach and you don't have a clear path, CEPD should be called about that. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yes, we can help you establish that path where it
Okay.
was or very near where it was previously. And instead of going straight up and over, we'd much prefer if we did these at a dog leg angle to prevent scouring in the event of a storm and ebb surge channels from forming.
Okay, and then Brighton, my second question, there are some people that whose views have been blocked by the dunes that are higher than what we have customarily done. Uh, is there any way to try to accommodate these people or resolve this issue?
We do have a few residents that are speaking to engineers to come up with plans that would provide a desirable result in front of their homes on the dune system. Those plans are going to be presented to our board. If the board approves, then the residents would be allowed to make those improvements. But if not, then I don't think that it would be allowed.
Okay, so individual homeowners whose views are blocked or have the opportunity to develop a plan to reduce the dune height, that plan has to be presented to the CEPD board, and the board has the power to either accept or reject that plan. Is that what you
That's
said?
correct. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
thanks, Brighton. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Any
Right.
other
I've got a few questions. First, you were saying on the vegetation, you were going to put in woody species to stop the migration. Which way are you worried about with the migration? What migration are you worried about?
Windblown sediment, sand generally migrates, and the more vegetation you can
So it's
install
safe.
on your dunes, it traps the sand and prevents it from, in essence,
Okay,
blowing into
no,
folks' yards.
that's good. So you're not worried about the vegetation migrating, you're worried about the sand migrating.
Correct. Yes.
Fine. Okay, next, in terms of the amount of sand loss, Renee has typically said that we have 25% of sand loss the first year. Do you have an estimate for how much sand loss we have had?
I do not at the moment. I can't say. I will put a question into our engineer to see if the post-construction surveys have shown anything lost
I
until
think
this
one
point.
could, even beyond the post-construction survey, that one could go out and through some engineering estimates, take a look at how much sand loss we have had. I think I have my opinions about the amount of sand loss, and I find it quite concerning. I have no idea why. Why is it worse this time? We have a tremendous amount of sand loss, in my opinion, and this is just me walking the beach looking at the first day versus today. We have tremendous escarpments, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know why. And I don't know if we use different kind of sand, if we should have had a sand engine to dump the sand up north. I don't know, and I would like to know. Okay, next is, I don't know if Blind Pass is closed today or not.
It's
Is
getting
it?
close.
It's getting close. So first, we all know that if Blind Pass closes, it adversely impacts all of Pine Island Sound. I don't know if you know that, Brighton, but it's true. Okay.
Well, so I've spoken to the county just as recently as yesterday about this issue, and they
Okay.
are completing an environmental study. The county is not entirely convinced that maintaining the pass open is actually providing as many environmental benefits as some may assume. So this study will help to assess
And
the true impacts of what's going on and help the county to assess whether, as I understand it, it's a policy decision of the Lee County Board of Commissioners to undertake the activity of dredging the channel. And
yes.
I initially personally assumed that it had something to do with navigation because I know that folks like to get their boats from one side to the other.
No, no, it's
But
not
I
that.
actually, yeah, exactly. There's no component of navigation related to the maintenance of that channel. So, um, from a sand migration and erosion perspective, if the channel were to close in temporarily, it would help the sand to prevent the sand from being eroded from where Sanibel just placed it on the north end of the island and would help some of the sand that's moving from Captiva be transported along the north side of Sanibel so that it's not lost in essence. They are also not entirely convinced that it's going to completely close in. They said in previous years they thought that it was going to close, and we're thankful that they weren't too reactionary in their decisions because it broke open and began to flow again on its own.
Good.
So there is a possibility of that happening. As of this morning, when I passed over it, it was not completely closed off. It's still probably 20 feet wide or so. Um, but that is where the county stands
Right.
currently.
And, there's a lot of history on this. Um, Blind Pass was closed for years and years. And then I don't remember the exact, specifics of it, but the county decided that it needed to be opened, and they made a pledge that it would be maintained open basically in perpetuity. And you're saying now that the county is rethinking that position, and the county might be, if it did close, the county might think it was all right for it to be closed?
Correct. Yes, they didn't convey to me that it would be perpetually opened. It sounded like each time a renourishment project happens, this is kind of a typical occurrence. And so in some years it clears itself,
Who in the
sometimes
county
it
is telling you
doesn't.
this?
Steve Boutel and Mike
That
Campbell.
It's
So
okay.
there are also some benefits if it does temporarily close, just say for a couple or a few months before it busts open. You normally would see really good growth of seagrass and mangroves due to the lower flows and turbidity. Um, there were a bunch of benefits that they mentioned that do happen at the times when it's temporarily closed. So the water doesn't look as pretty. I do entirely understand that, but that doesn't necessarily equate to water quality. So the quality of the water is not necessarily impacted just because it's not as clear as it typically
And it
is.
doesn't wash out. But okay, Brighton, I believe there were studies, water quality studies done by SCCF and or the county that said the quality of the water in Pine Island Sound was impacted by this closing.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
we
There's
don't
no
need
question about that.
we don't need new studies.
Hey,
And
this is Renee. Excuse you for interrupting. As you know, in the early 2000s, I
Just stop. Okay. If we're gonna have a discussion here, we're gonna have it. We're not gonna talk over people. We
yes,
can't.
may I speak?
1 second, Renee.
Sure.
But it sounds, I just want to,
You're going down a rabbit hole.
Titan seems to be saying is that this is a county decision
yes.
and DEP decision. So it doesn't help to cross-examine Brighton or ask him how to resolve it. It seems to be
Yeah, okay. Let me know when you're done because I have brand new information from Steve Patel.
And so what we're going to do, we're going to try to figure out is who's responsible for this decision, who has the authority, and we can't resolve it here today, but we'll learn about who has that authority. Renee is asking to speak, little out of order, a little unusual, but he is a board member of CEPD, so I will take the opportunity to allow him to add his voice on this issue, but Renee, the issue is about who is responsible for making decisions regarding blind pass.
David, the reason I asked Renee to come is because I overheard him yesterday talking about the opening of Blind Pass, and I thought it was best if we get the firsthand information. So
That's fine. I just want to be clear what it is and what we're doing, and I don't want people speaking on top of each other. Renee, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Brighton didn't even know this, and Brighton and I spoke yesterday, and I asked him to find out what he can find out. Steve did call me, and you have to know the following facts. Fact number one is that the county already has the permit. If they wanted to dredge it tomorrow, they could. They have the finance and the permit, so there will be no delay. And I misunderstood and thought there would be a delay if they decide tomorrow. Patel made a very, very good point and said, we are going to dredge this when the sand stops coming and filling because we just did our beach renourishment because this happened last time. It got really close. And then with the summer, with the summer soft currents, it started opening and we were okay. And then we did a maintenance dredging. So where it stands right now, and forgive me, Brighton, I don't know what you just said or how you build it, but they are waiting for the sand to stop drifting from the beach renourishment because they don't want to do it tomorrow And what happens is all the sand gets filled up again. It makes perfect sense. Then I asked the magic question. So, Steve, what do you think? What do you think? What are we looking at? And he said, there is a possibility it might close, but the nanosecond the sand stops drifting in the pass from the beach renourishment is when we would start the dredging. And then it's just a 30, I don't know if it's 30 or 90 days on the bid for the hopper dredgers to come in, and everyone knows the drill where they either start in the front or they start in the back. All the studies have been done. They're ready to press the button, but they're waiting. So that's the real explanation. That's coming from Steve Patel's words as of 1 o'clock yesterday. And so Brighton has never seen the process before. He's just trying to explain things that he's never been through before. So, but there is yes, to answer your question, David, they originally, just to understand the history, is that originally the CEPD started the permit in 1999 to be precise, when the pass was closed for several years. Then the county said the CP decided that the county had a better shot because of there was the county asking versus the special district asking to dredge the pass. Then the pass got dredged, turned out great, and the county created I don't know the exact word, but that they would maintain the pass. And we've had another dredging since then. So it's always been their responsibility, to answer your question, to maintain it, to study it, to survey it, and all the things, and to improvement whenever possible. And so they basically are waiting for the sand to stop drifting in, and we will be preparing the CEPD. Our meeting is Monday, to have an official narrative on exactly what's going on. But
Okay.
what you have just heard are
So
the facts.
I just wanted to clarify the issue here. Brighton seemed to suggest that the county may believe that there is a benefit to keeping Blind Pass closed long term. You are suggesting that the county is going to hesitate reopening Blind Pass because there's still sand drifting.
That's
but
right.
And that at some point they would make a decision to reopen it if it needs to be reopened, which is a little different than suggesting.
I know. And this is news to me. That's why Margaret came and got me. Brighton, who told you that?
No, what you said is correct. They don't want to be reactionary. They want to wait for the system to stabilize, get the results of their 2026 study, and analyze what actually would be the long-term benefits of maintaining it open or closed.
But
So
wait, but
whatever
who,
will be
but
most
Brighton, who told
environmentally
you?
beneficial.
Two different things.
Right, those are two different. Linda's right. Listen, that would have been volunteered to me. Brighton, with all due respect, who told you that they're holding back?
Renee, we understand the issue here. We're not going to resolve it between you and Brighton or anybody else on this panel. There is we need clarity as to what the county's view of Blind Pass being open or not open over the long term. I think everybody agrees that there is some concern about moving too quickly because sand is still drifting. But once the sand starts drifting, we need to know whether the county is committed to keeping it open or whether they think there's some benefit to keeping it closed and won't make a decision.
We'll get it in writing. We're getting the narrative on Monday. I'm sorry that Brighton volunteered. This is news to me that they were thinking of holding it back.
So what I'm going to do is ask the CEP to try to get clarity on this and bring it back to the panel at the next meeting so that we know what the county's position is. We understand what CEPD's position is. The question is, what is the county's position? And maybe you guys can get clarity on that for us. Is that fair?
Yeah, am I muted
Absolutely.
or can you hear me?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks. Listen, sorry, this is total news to me that the county would finds a relevance to closing it. It's absurd. And Stephen would be honest with me and tell me that. I think Brighton maybe, misunderstood. It's true. Yes, maybe lack of turbidity creates more, but Brighton has no idea on the concept of a closed pass.
We got it. We got it. So we'll just get clarity. And Renee, thank you. And Marguerite, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I'm done. I'm
Yeah.
done.
We understand the issue now. And so, Brighton, if you're the general manager, so you know what we're looking for, what answer we're looking for, and what clarity we need.
Yeah.
Because in fact, the county's position is maybe that there's a benefit to keeping it closed. Then obviously people on Captiva want to weigh in about that. Okay,
I do
understand.
have one more
Absolutely.
question, please,
go ahead, Mark.
for Brighton. To stop the migration of the sand in this area before the Jensen curve, would a physical barrier be a possibility? You know, in other areas they use like a slotted fence or what is it called? A thatch fence. Very often they are made out of natural products, just so when we have windy days, that sand really just blows, and it takes time for plants to grow to be able to hold it back.
We don't have any
Right.
water. We don't
Yeah,
have any rain.
that may be a possibility. I've certainly seen it in areas that are more void of vegetation. We've done a very extensive planting of the dune system, which we hope to continue to add more vegetation to. So once we begin getting regular rain, I think that the plants will likely do the job that they're supposed to, and hopefully we won't need any slotted fences. But that is certainly possible in areas where we're seeing higher levels of sand drift or areas that are having trouble establishing vegetation. I think it would certainly provide some benefits.
I mean, they are very low. They are really just for the sand that, you know, the sand doesn't travel high. It travels very low. One could easily
Right.
step over them also, but I think it would make sense for that stretch.
Okay.
Okay.
I think what this shows us, I mean, the idea of having CPD come to our meetings is to get a report. It's not really a CEPD meeting. But I think, Brighton, you're getting a sense of the concern about the community, but we will try to keep it related to a report rather than turn it into a CEPD meeting, though I thought this discussion was useful for you to hear and we can move forward.
Absolutely.
And I think
Thank you, David. I
you would
appreciate it.
discussion of CEP didn't accomplish the rest of the renourishment to begin with. So, Brighton, we thank you for getting the renourishment done, even though there's controversy around it. So, look, one other point I just want to make before I open to other questions. You mentioned Moby mats on Lichen Whiteman Lane. I don't know who approached you on that, but there's a homeowners association on Whiteman and Leica who are responsible for the beach paths and for having pedestrian access to the beach. So I would ask before you make any decision on any mats whatsoever that you reach out to the homeowners association. And if you need to know who to contact, you can call me. Okay?
Thank you. I did not know that. I appreciate that information.
The person's decision on Moby mats with respect to these two streets.
Okay.
Okay. And any other questions from the panel or from the community? Any questions, Ken, to Brighton from the community?
I think most of the questions were answered. They were about vegetation at the Jensen curve and about blind paths.
Okay. All right. I think the blind pass discussion was very informative, and I think we know what we need to know. Okay. Any other questions from the panel? Brighton, thank you. And
Thank you. I appreciate it.
yeah. Okay. Next thing on the agenda is Matt DePaulis, SCCF update.
Hey everyone, a lot going on, but I'll keep it brief today. We're in the midst of legislative session, so I would encourage everyone to sign up for action alerts with SCCF or wherever you get information about what's going on in Tallahassee, because there's a lot of movement on a lot of bills. Most recently, about 15 minutes during that last discussion, actually, Senator Martin filed a amendment to 290, which is the Florida Farm Bill that has been in the news for the past couple weeks. That's the one that would have a chilling effect on free speech if you're trying to talk about farm products or any agricultural products. So Senator Martin's amendment removed that disparagement clause, which makes the bill significantly better. So we were excited to see that. But if you're interested in what's going on with that, we have our legislative page that has constant updates, and then we put out weekly updates into email boxes, and we're doing podcast updates as well. So a lot of information if you're interested on that front. Closer to home, the water still has not really seen any improvement in the estuary, which is difficult because it looks pretty good in a lot of places, but that's because we're not receiving that water from the lake. And the Army Corps had a meeting last Friday that they announced that they were not planning on changing the flows from the lake at any time soon. The governing board meeting with the water district is on Thursday, so SCCF will be there asking for larger flows again, but we haven't seen any indication that those flows will pick up. Luckily, we've gotten a little bit of water from precipitation, so that's helped us limp along, but we're getting to a pretty dire place in the estuary that we would expect to see ramifications in that are measured in years, not weeks. So that is coming, but I'm happy to take any questions from anyone.
Any questions for Matt?
I have one, David. Matt, are you seeing any fish kills due to the cold temperatures we've had the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, we saw some tarpon wash up in Tarpon Bay. Nothing major outside of that. They were similar temperatures to when we had that big snook die off a few years ago, but
That's what I'm
haven't seen
concerned about.
anything.
You're
Yeah,
not seeing that.
I haven't heard of any large snook die offs or anything, just some juvenile tarpon.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Matt? Matt, can I give you a homework assignment?
Please.
Can you put together whatever studies that SCCF did that was referenced before with respect to blind pass, and whether it be open, closed, and the effect on Pine Island Sound, and maybe just let us know what those studies are, and they can go to Marguerite, to Jay, and to Linda, and to Brighton, so that at least we know what we're all talking about, at least has some scientific basis to it. So those studies seem to have existed, and maybe you can find them, and that would be a good starting point here.
Yeah, certainly. I've seen a couple of those, so I'll dig them up and see what they say and get those to where they need to go.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Matt. Next thing on the agenda is County South Seas redevelopment legal update. I'll try to do this quickly as always, hopefully. There are currently 7 lawsuits pending over the county rezoning in the South Seas efforts to increase density and building heights. There's the decision by the lower court requiring that the units on South Seas can't exceed 912. That decision is under appeal. It's not been assigned to a court at this point yet. The decision of the administrative law judge saying that the code amendments that allowed all this to happen was lawful, that is being appealed, and there's no judges assigned to that as we sit here today. The lawsuit against the CCA for claiming that the 912 includes hotels, which it does. That case is scheduled for a status conference on April 6th, and we'll see how that proceeds. The case against the panel for not producing the records that the panel is supposed to produce, that case is not scheduled, but as everybody knows on the panel, and we're not going to have a legal discussion because that's not something for the public consumption at this point, but everybody's seen that an answer has been filed by the attorneys for the panel in response to the lawsuit claiming that the panel, have not produced records that we are required to produce under the law. Is a question about whether we're governed by the law to produce that, but in any case, we produced over 1,000 pages of records, and that case is now going to be before a court. There is a case brought by the Captiva, the South Seas Associations, and one of the homes on South Seas arguing that the beach house that was built, the restaurant, impedes the easement that was in effect for decades, and that case is still pending. And then there's another case, a cert petition filed by one of the homes on South Seas, claiming that South Seas violated their buffering and easement rights there. And then the last case, which I just want to spend a couple of minutes on, is the petition for a writ of certiorari, which has been filed by the CCA, RLR, Roberts, Royal Shell, 8 timeshare associations on South Seas, and 12 condo associations on South Seas. All those people together, all those agencies, all those organizations together have filed a single petition for a writ of certiorari, basically appealing. It's basically an appeal of the decision of the Board of County Commissioners to rezone South Seas to allow for the 635 units instead of the 272 units they were entitled to over the past 50 years. So that petition is pending before Judge Schenko. Judge Schenko was the judge who decided the 912 case. So the petition for a writ of certiorari, basically to invalidate the zoning approval that took place before the HECS and the Board of County Commissioners this past summer, that petition has been filed by, as I said, all those organizations. That is being heard by Judge Schenko. And the rule there is that the court will invalidate that county rezoning action if procedural due process wasn't afforded to the petitioners during the HECS and county commissioner meetings. It will be invalidated if the requirements of the code and the plan were not observed. And it'll be invalidated if findings of fact that the HECS made and the Board of County Commissioners made were not supported by competent substantial evidence. So what that means, that we have claimed, the CCA has claimed, and the timeshare associations have claimed, and the condo associations have claimed that they should have been given full party status during these hearings in the same way that the applicant had status, to be allowed to present a case, to cross-examine witnesses, and to do opening and closing arguments, to present a rebuttal case. As everybody knows who participated in those hearings, the lawyers for the South Seas were able to cross-examine our witnesses or the witnesses of the community. That was not true the other way around. So South Seas was able to put on witnesses to testify to the hearing examiner, but not subject to any cross-examination from the community. The CCA and all the associations claiming that's a violation of due process because of the unique nature of the South Seas, which is a unified, built-out master development with an interwoven array of land ownership, with shared infrastructure, with shared amenities, which were tied to a singular zoning resolution that was in effect since 1973 and was confirmed multiple times over a 50-year period by the county. So what the argument is that they should have had the same rights during this hearing as the applicant did to present its case. If the court finds that to be true, the county zoning approval could be invalidated and they would have to start over by scratch. The petition for a writ of certiorari also shows or claims that the easements that were not properly identified, easements that the associations had on that property, and that deviations were granted on property that South Seas did not own, that was owned by other parties on South Seas, other property owners on South Seas, and that would be a violation. The petition also claims that the fire department did not have the capacity to service the higher buildings, which the fire department testified to during the hearing. The Board of County Commissioners and the HECS hearing examiner, found that it met the code, but the code requires that the fire department has the ability to service any new development. That was not supported by any substantial competent evidence. Also, the claim in the petition is that there is not sufficient sewer capacity for this increased development on South Seas. And the data was presented to show that the county staff claimed that they needed for the new development about 187,000 gallons per day, when in fact, when you add in the 640 units were not included in the development, the permitted capacity of the wastewater treatment plant could not serve the new development. And that's still pending before the judge. And that's the basis for invalidating the rezoning. And so there's a lot of things that are pending, not to mention the fact that the historical development pattern on South Seas was violated by this zoning approval. And that is also before this judge, because the county has to, because the rezoning had to be consistent with the historic development pattern. So we're waiting to hear how the court will handle this petition. It is scheduled for a status conference on March 26th, I believe. And so I think I said March 26th, but I think that's right. In any case, there will be a status conference, and the judge will issue an order to show cause, asking the South Seas and the county to respond to the petition. The petitioners will then have an opportunity to reply, and then there will probably be oral argument, and then the court will make a decision whether or not the evidence in the record supports the rezoning that was approved. And that gives you a sense of what this petition for cert is about. It's a very complicated issue. I hope people could follow the sort of garbled stuff I just articulated, but in any case, that's where we are. Are there any questions?
Yeah, David, this is Jay Brown again. Is the remedy of the last case you talked about would be they would have to repeat the process?
They would have to make a decision of what they would do. What would happen is that if the court finds that the rezoning did not meet the requirements of law, it would be invalidated. That could be appealed to a higher, to a court of appeals of 3 judges, and so that could get appealed. If that got sustained on appeal, if it was invalidated, they would have to go back to the drawing boards. Yes, and they would have to have a new hearing and somehow remedy, if it's possible, what they did or didn't do in order to meet the conditions of the rezoning.
I don't see how they can argue that, we had all of our rights when we just found out about this 2 days before the commissioners were going to vote on
They
it.
had a hearing before the hearing examiner. It went on for like 9 days. The community had an opportunity to testify. The question is their testimony, their right to speak to the hearing examiner and the Board of County Commissioners, but didn't have the right to cross-examine the South Seas witness.
I see, okay.
Were misrepresenting some of the facts. Does that violate due process?
Right, I got it now. Thank you.
Okay. I have a question, David. So there's lots going on and lots of appeals all over the place. What is South Seas allowed to build while all this is going on?
Okay, South Seas was granted the approval by the county to build 2 hotels and up to 635 units on their 120 acres. However, the lower court said they're limited to 912. They're appealing that, but because that was a county decision, that ruling by Judge Schenko, the 912, is stayed pending the appeal. However, Judge Schenko ordered the county and the South Seas to advise the CCA should they seek permits to build any of those units, hotels or condos on South Seas, before those permits are granted. So that's CCA has the opportunity to go back before the judge and explain that there will be irreparable harm if they are allowed to build, and therefore he should remove or vacate the stay and basically enforce the 912 pending the appeal. And so for all intents and purposes, I think South Seas can't do any building beyond their 272 units without having a decision on the appeal of the Schenko case and probably some of these other cases also.
Can they if they go get permits and don't tell the CCA?
They're violating court order. They wouldn't do that.
Okay.
No, they wouldn't do that. The court was very clear that they have to give notice. And not only does South Seas have to give notice of their application for permits, the county has to give notice of their receipt of an application for permits to the
Okay.
which would then give us the CCA the opportunity to go back before the court, vacate the stay, and enforce the 912.
Thank you.
Any other questions for David? Okay. Next thing on the agenda is just the public records. Everybody on the panel's got a copy of the answer. And we're waiting to see what the court's going to do with this, if anything. Next thing is the Rauschenberg property update. We have heard nothing official from the foundation or South Seas regarding this property. We've heard from other brokers that South Seas and the foundation are under contract. It hasn't closed, and we're still trying to get more information about this. Hopefully, if the bond referendum passes today and we have access to funds to purchase some or all of that property, maybe things can change. We'll see what happens after today. Any questions regarding the public records update or the Rauschenberg property? Okay, Jay, stormwater.
On stormwater, not much to report. As I have reported previously, there's a working group with Sanibel and Captiva representatives, Sanibel being led by Dana Sousa, the Sanibel city manager, David, me, and Mike Bennett. We were unable to get that group together for a meeting because we couldn't find anything that would fit the schedule of the Sanibel folks. So there's really no progress on stormwater since the last meeting. Just to remind you all, the key issue is that this project has become extraordinarily expensive because of improvements that Sanibel has to make to their system to receive our wastewater. And we're trying to find ways to either reduce those costs or get grants to reduce property owner costs to get the wastewater project moving. So that's all I can report right now, David, on wastewater. Do you want me to move on to stormwater?
Yeah. I just want to say that just so that Marguerite understands that I understand you've been communicating.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I left that out. Marguerite, as you know, I have been investigating your performance-based septic system. I've gotten some feedback from Mark Thompson at SCCF, and I'm still waiting to get feedback from the viability of this system long-term from the guy who runs Cruise Environmental, who's probably knows more about septics than anybody on Captiva.
Okay, stormwater, Jay.
On stormwater, I got a brief update from Phil Gilligy, who for Lee County is running the stormwater project. As you'll all remember, we are not allowed to run that project. The county is running the project with no input from us other than one opportunity at the start of the project. So we're dependent upon reports from Phil Gilligy as to what the progress is. Phil has told me that they are still having trouble creating a model that they're satisfied with, a model that will show where all the stormwater flows go and where the problem areas are. He said they're still not satisfied with the model that's been completed, and the project is likely going to be delayed beyond. Originally, there was supposed to be a first draft report this month. He says they're not going to meet that timetable, and he doesn't really know how much longer it's going to take to resolve the model issue, getting the model working. So that's where we are in stormwater.
Any questions for Jay on stormwater? Okay. Next thing is Infrastructure Committee, Mike Bennett.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I won't rehash the sand discussions we've had this morning, but over here where I'm at, it's ground zero for sand migration across Captiva Drive. And just a reminder to everyone that yes, vegetation, so on and so forth would do a great deal toward preventing some of that. But also recall that the county will have a project underway. They're currently studying and putting, I guess, the plans together to put in the matting that will, I guess, prevent storm surge undermining Captiva Drive, where it was undermined in previous hurricanes, and that will require that area to be basically worked on, that 800 feet. And so anything that would be erected or planted or whatever at some point is probably going to be taken out for that project to be completed. So just a comment, probably the best thing we could do is just keep the wind from blowing out of the northwest, and maybe that would take care of everything.
Are you volunteering to do that?
You know, I've got limited, got limited ability to influence that, David.
Okay.
We did have a safety issue, however, working on one of our residents, a couple who are avid bicyclists, have been very concerned about the safety factor of both sand and vegetation growth on the shoulder right away on Captiva Drive, actually from Jensen's Curve all the way out to Blind Pass. And so we took a look at that. Obviously, in this spot here near Jensen's Curve is the worst for sand, but there are a number of areas too where vegetation is growing or infringing into that right away, and that puts a safety problem there because bicyclists have to move out into the street to avoid that. And so we have been in contact with the county. The county has already inspected Captiva Drive, both for the sand and the vegetation. I don't know yet exactly what their game plan is, but they've indicated the desire and ability to correct some of this. Another problem is, and I don't know if it's where water lines go into the residences or what, but there are a number of spots along Captiva Drive where there is settling of the asphalt on that shoulder, and that creates a real hazard for bicyclists as well. The county is currently they have developed, I guess, I'm not sure what their process is, but they've indicated that they will go out and inspect these addresses and develop a work plan to try to repair, probably with an asphalt fill-in or something, the most serious of these. And I just saw that yesterday. And so the county is aware of these safety issues and has indicated that they will make things happen to get those corrected. Obviously, the sand issue is going to be one that's probably going to keep recurring. And the vegetation issue mainly is just these weeds that popped up after the hurricanes. They've got the nice yellow flowers on them that kind of just get let go, and they kind of grow out in a few areas, and they just need to be eliminated there.
Mike, I didn't realize how bad the sand problem was along there until you spoke and Marguerite was trying to address it. Is it possible we can do something or get the county to do something to put sand fences, something like that, to try to get the migration reduced?
Well, I think that's possible, Linda. We're kind of early in this game, and I'm sure they're not going to want to come out and correct it, every several weeks or something of that nature. And so, hopefully, we can ask them to develop some type of plan
It might,
And even though, as I pointed out, it'll be temporary.
yeah,
Yeah.
but those sand fences usually, I don't think they're very expensive, but maybe I'm wrong. And they might, I don't know if they'll knock down the sand and keep it. They're supposed to knock down the sand and keep it where it is. So, okay.
Yeah, currently we've just tried to put up a little blockage just to keep the sand off our grass out front, so we don't have to pay to have it removed every other week.
Is that what's happening, Mike? Is that sand is blowing onto people's lawn front properties?
Well, we have grass out front. The neighbors next door, their condos or duplexes, and theirs is just kind of piling up right now on the shoulder and in their landscape. But yeah, it's coming across, and then it collects when it finds something that will will hold it or stop it. And so we've had our lawn actually raked out and the shoulders shoveled out at least 2 or 3 times. And get all fairness to the Captiva Erosion Prevention District. I think a lot of our problem is the sand that was originally put in by the county to as some type of barrier. If you recall, the small berm that was put on that 800-foot section, that has substantially reduced. And I think so far the migrated sand, I think a lot of it has come from that piece of sand and that work.
It may be that you are allowed to do something if it's your property. I don't know if you'd be interested in that, but it may be legal for you to do something across the street.
Well, and the problem is it's not my property. It's the property to the north of me, which is has no vegetation and is subject to this migration. And so the residents along that stretch would have to be willing to potentially, if that's the solution, would have to be willing to do something. And my understanding is that the county, to do anything there, would need some type of permission from those residents, simply because that property is privately owned once you get past the roadway and the right of way until you get back into the dune itself.
Well, I guess the question is if we get strong northwest winds over the next couple of months or whatever, and there's a lot of sand that's migrating like it did even after a hurricane, whether or not there's something we have to do as a community as opposed to leaving it to individual homeowners to try to solve their individual problems and pay the cost of that. So,
right.
Well, I guess all we can ask is keep us advised and let us know if the problem is becoming qualitatively greater, and that we should deal with as a community as opposed to leaving it to individuals to fight themselves. You know what I mean?
We'll have further conversations with the DOT. I know the area up around the Mucky Duck at that end of Andy Rossi is also an issue relative to sand impeding the roadway and right of way. And so there's several areas of concern, and I think we'll definitely have more conversation with the DOT as they take some action and we talk about what can prevent that.
At Sunset Captiva, due to a series of events, which I don't want to go into, we ended up rebuilding the vegetation between us and the dunes. And so we had an extensive planting project, and you can take a look at it. To me, it looks like it's working. It's a little dry right now, but it's capturing the sand. I don't know if it's relevant or not.
Okay. Any other questions from the panel or the community for Mike?
David, if I can just add for a second, with some of the concerns that I'm hearing, just so that everyone's aware, anyone can go into and submit a request for action under Lee County. So if you just go into Google and type RFA Lee County, it will pop up, and you can submit requests such as if there's vegetation that's blocking the right of way, or signage, sand. I've done them. I actually just did one the other day for the sign at Turner, or yesterday actually, for the sign right by Turner Beach, the big sign that says the Captiva ordinance for no parking along the road. Because the wind and everything, the sign is almost down completely, but should be also facing traffic as they're coming onto the island. And they're pretty responsive. So if you have any concerns of sand in the right of way, vegetation, you fill out those forms, put that information in, and typically it gets done rather quickly.
Christine, Mike has, and the panel has an ongoing relationship with the DOT person who's in charge of all this. So we're hoping that that communication continues and that they can respond directly to Mike, right? The formal process of making a request. I mean, they've been very good working with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just putting it out there that option is available as well.
That's good thought.
Thank you.
Something in front of their property. Thank you.
Oh.
Any other questions for Mike? Mike, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is Development Committee. Marguerite.
Yes, we have our fundraiser coming up this Friday. It's from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Captiva Civic Center. Musical entertainment by Emmy and Peabody Award winning winner Cat Apple. We have a good 50 participants so far. I'm still hoping for some last minute people to sign up. Yeah, that's for this fundraiser. Ken put a link where to make it easier for people to sign up, where they can, just hit the link on our website and go directly to Eventbrite. So if anyone still needs to sign up, it's really easy now. And I hope to see everyone there. It will be a delightful evening celebrating Captiva the night before Valentine's.
Thank you,
Mark,
everybody should sign up if they haven't. It's Friday night, right?
Yes, Friday the 13th from 5:30 to 7:30. We have some hors d'oeuvres, some refreshments. Also, the Protect Captiva art is still on the walls, which I like. The auction will be over. I don't know if it can be extended by a day, but I don't know. But yeah, it will be.
Marguerite, well, I wanted to encourage all the panel members. I have not done this, but encourage all of the panel members to send this out to much of their mailing list or a abbreviated mailing list, and encourage people to come. This is one of our fundraisers. So far, we have fundraised about $10,000, and we're supposed to get to 40. And with 50 people, we're not going to make it. So I think this is us. This is our panel. And if Marguerite could send out the flyer to us all and ask, I think we should be sending it out to our friends. I have not done that. I intend to do that.
Yeah, if you like to celebrate with your neighbors, your friends, bring them along, have them join.
Thank you. Any questions for Marguerite? She mentioned the Protect Captiva auction. There's an auction that you can log into the CCA, the Captiva Civic Association website. There's an auction of art that was donated to Protect Captiva. All the sales from the art will go to the Protect Captiva Legal Fund, and you can bid on any of those paintings. I think it's I think it ends tomorrow, midday, I think. But in any case, take a look at some of the art is pretty good.
Yeah.
And the value to purchases, the value is really good too. So I encourage people to take a look at that website. Next thing on the agenda is the community transportation proposal discussion. The the panel received an email or a letter from a realtor who has connections to South Seas, asking whether we would, what do we think about having some sort of transportation from South Seas to the village, either through a trolley or golf carts, something like the escargot that existed before that Sandy was involved with, in order to alleviate traffic and during the high season. And also, what was mentioned in the letter is that the many of the associations and many of the property owners on South Seas are not going to be participants in the amenities that the resort has available, and so therefore there'll be greater likelihood that they'll be going to the village for restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. And so the question arose as to whether the panel would be interested in weighing in on whether we should have some sort of transportation service from South Seas to basically the village. And it came up at the meeting of the all owners meeting of the associations on South Seas the other day. And my understanding is that that is in part going to be discussed among the associations, Bayside Villas, the former tennis villas, et cetera, to see if that was something that would be interesting to them, because they would be the major beneficiaries of this kind of service. So I think before we make a final determination as to that, I think we need to hear from the associations on South Seas as to what their view of it is. So I've actually asked them to talk among themselves and let us know what their view is. But I think if we want to just have some preliminary discussion about this, we can do this now while we await to hear what the associations on South Seas feel about it. But I know Sandy's here. I see her driving, it looks like. I know Jay had talked about discussing it today. So I don't know if there's anyone who wishes to discuss it now. Maybe Sandy, you can sort of weigh in a little bit about your experience here, if you can, while you're driving. I don't want to.
Oh, yeah, sure. No, it's fine. I have a Gulf Shore Live meeting, so I'm just headed there. But anyway, I really wanted to let you know that I have no objection to it. I don't plan on starting my escargot again. It was very expensive, but it was a nice community service to do. But it was very expensive, and I never was successful in getting any other retailers on the island to join in on the expense. And so when it got flooded after the hurricane, both the trolley and the Jeep, I loaned the Jeep to the fire department for a little bit, and then but eventually it just became a rust bucket, so it became unsafe. So we took both to the dump, and I don't plan on replacing it. So I think it'd be a great community service if they wanted to do that. I have no objections whatsoever. Finding staff to run it was always a bit of an issue, but I was able to always find somebody that enjoyed being a host or hostess.
But Sandy, this is Jay. You never, just from a business perspective, it was not a successful thing for you to do. Is basically what you're saying. You just didn't get enough ridership out of it to
Oh no,
get any kind of
we got
return on
extreme.
cost. Or,
Yeah, no, we got extreme ridership, and I mean, I didn't charge anything, so it was free. And I had requests for weddings that they had wedding parties go down instead of a limo with decorating. They'd have the escargot. So I mean, people loved it. It was about 100,000 a year from me out of my pocket. Um, and once I'd put all the money in, and now that you know both the trolley and the Jeep were gone, I just decided that now we've got so many golf carts and stuff. I think there are ways to get around the island, so I just decided not to do it again. But I think it'd be a huge hit. They could charge people for riding if they wanted to.
What they said in the letter is that they may not need to charge people, that the equipment could be donated by the beneficiaries, and that the drivers would do well on tips. I have no idea if that is accurate, but that's what it said I believe it said in the letter to us.
Well, I always paid my drivers minimum wage, and because I needed to have them covered for workers' comp if we were ever, we had the commercial insurance policy, etc. And I don't know how you could get around not paying somebody and work for tips only, but I'm not an attorney, so I don't know. But I always had to pay. But it wasn't that expensive. It was like $20 an hour. It's not that much.
Ken Suarez is here. Ken, do you want to weigh in about this at all? I know that it came up in the meeting of your associations. I don't know if Ken is doing something else. He looks like he's on mute. Okay. Anyway, so I think that, there's always been issues with the trolley. Where do you turn around? Whether whether there's pollution issues, whether there are, but most of this could be worked out if there's a need and if there's a will and if there's a financial support for it. So I think what we should do, unless people feel otherwise, we wait to hear from the associations because whatever service that was created, it would generate from South Seas, from the associations there.
Right. David, does that mean, do you think that means it would become their project rather than a panel project to implement this? If
I don't necessarily know that or believe that, but I don't think it can be a project if they're not in favor of it.
Yeah, right. That's for sure.
So I think we should hear what they feel.
Well, I wonder also, though, if South Seas would allow this trolley to go into
I don't think
resort.
I don't think they can keep it out.
that's solely of South Seas. I think the road ownership is a shared ownership in many parts of Plantation Road. So I'm not sure what the logistics of that would be, Jay. It's not the road is not owned or controlled solely by Timbers.
Yeah, but we're not allowed to go in there unless we're a member of their
I'm not sure that's true, Jay. I think if you had a friend, for example, at the Tennis Villas or Bayside
yeah,
Village,
they would have to tell the person up front to let you in.
right, and that would be the same
I
with
see what you're saying. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So again, that's a complicated question that's going to come up in the cert petition also, is the shared easements, shared roadways. It's not even clear to me, at least I've been told this, that the gate actually is on one of the association's property, not on the property owned by the new resort owners. I don't know if that's true, but those are kinds of issues that have to be resolved if we ever decided to do a trolley of some sort.
Well, I'll be interested to see what the homeowners associations come up with. It could be a very good idea.
Something that we have to talk about. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I'll get back to them and say we'll wait to hear from them.
Right.
We'll cooperate with them in some fashion. Okay, next thing on the agenda is panel members' comments and questions. Are there any issues that the panel members wish to raise or discuss that weren't covered in the agenda?
No, but I have one more comment. Renee talked to Steve Patel, and there is a permit to open it, and it is true. Before you do it, you have to. There is a request for reasons for it being open, and are there benefits for it being closed? So they have to evaluate. It makes sense. It's the law of the land. So they do an evaluation before they go ahead with a permit and open it.
You're talking about blind pass again.
Blind pass. I think that's what Brighton was talking about. Whenever they decide to open it, they have to look both ways. They have to look at what are the benefits for it to be open and what are there benefits if we don't open it. Right. And then they evaluate but all the studies in the past have shown that there is benefits to keep it open. So, but that's where it might have come from, this idea of leaving it closed as it might be beneficial.
Well,
so that's part, yeah.
this is a long time ago, and my memory may be fuzzy on this, but I thought that we had a commitment from Lee County after the last time that the pass was opened, and this goes way back, probably at least 15 years ago. Uh, I know there was a big project at the county. They had a lot of meetings about it. We had public meetings about it. And I remember the net result of that all being a commitment by the county that they were going to keep Blind Pass open.
Yes, you're correct,
Forever.
Jay. We
Yeah,
have the
but
commitment.
again, though, it's certainly, of course, it makes sense for the to wait for the sand to stop migrating before you take the action. But I'm just concerned that there's a possibility that somebody might make a finding. Well, it's better off that it be closed, and then we have to go through this all over again of getting it open.
Yeah, we have the commitment, but by default, they have to look at both sides. And it's just part of how it has to be done.
Okay.
You say that, Marguerite, I don't know when you say that's the way it has to be done. I mean, it seems to be, I think the question that Linda and Jay are raising is that are we reinventing the wheel here? If we've had a whole series of studies that said that it's beneficial to be open, what are we going to now revisit all these studies, or are we going to use those studies?
No, I don't think it's revisiting it's just it's it's written in there. It's by default that they can just turn their head and not look at both sides. But I'm very sure living here, I mean, I see what happens when it closes off. We know what happens. So it is, you know how there are procedures and sometimes we feel, oh, this is totally unnecessary, but it's just part of the procedure.
And
Okay.
what they may be talking about, David, is sometimes they'll go back, as Brighton mentioned, and say, will the pass reopen itself once the northwest winds stop and the migration stops, particularly after a new project? So the DEP would say, is this a permanent closure that we need to mechanically open versus is this something that naturally with summer currents might reopen on its own? So it's not necessarily going to be reevaluating the policy. It's going to be reevaluating the instance of this closure.
That makes perfect sense to me, Ken. But I thought I was hearing between the lines, and I have a pretty good sense that so did Linda and Jay here between the lines, that there may be someone implying that it's better for the community or for the environment to keep it closed permanently, regardless of the situation. If we
I think you could make that. I think someone might want to make that case, and I think it's good to be vigilant, just in case that ever re-arises. But I'm sure that a lot of people on Captiva and the northern end of Sanibel would react very violently if everybody tried to change that policy.
Yeah, okay, but I think that's what I think we're looking for some clarity on. If Marguerite is saying there's some procedural rules that they have to go through in order to reopen it, and they have to do their due diligence, et cetera, that makes perfect sense. But if there's a policy change where someone is now saying, hey, maybe it's better to keep it closed, and that's something that I think we need to know about if someone is contemplating reaching that conclusion. Because there are studies that say it's better to keep it open as far as I understand it. And if we're going to revisit the policy, Ken, rather than the timing of implementation of the policy, I think the panel needs to know.
I think that's wise, and I think having Matt look at the policies that or the studies that SCCS has done, and also going back to the interlocal agreement with the city, the county, and the CAPD, and finding out what the terms of that were, that may give you the ammunition that if somebody starts to whisper, well, maybe we should let the sand migrate for a little bit longer, you could come back strongly and say, no, it's bad for the water quality, it's against this interlocal agreement, and it's not necessary for the other environmental processes.
There is no policy change and there is the commitment. It's just part of the procedure.
From your mouth to God's ears, Marguerite. That is not exactly what we heard from, in all honesty, from what Brighton was hearing from the county. So, and Renee made it clear that he didn't think that was the case. So we just need to get clarity for the panel. We don't want to be blindsided on this, on blind pass, right? Okay. Okay. Any other questions or issues from the panel?
So David, who owns that?
Who owns that issue?
Who owns making sure we have clarity on this? I mean, we asked Matt to get some information. Are you holding this one and watching it, or does somebody need to do something?
Brighton to come back to the panel next month to give us a report on that. And I think it's now on our radar, and I think it's on CEPD's radar, and it's certainly on Marguerite's radar. So I think that
Okay. Okay.
And we'll see if we can get an answer on this. If they say they have a commitment to keep it open, we just got to figure out how best to do it. Then it's an easy case. If they're saying, maybe not, maybe we want to keep it closed, then we have a different issue before us, and then we have some more different kinds of work to do, right? Okay, Ken, are there any questions or issues raised from the community before we ask for a motion to adjourn?
No, all those have been addressed.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn?
Marguerite makes a motion. Is there a second?
Yes.
There's no second? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Thank you very much, everybody. Sandy, drive safely. And we'll see everybody next month. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Or Friday.
Friday, everybody come. Bring all your friends.
Friday.
If you have any.
That's right.
Bye, everybody.